Hi, everyone. Today I'm joined by Susie Wee. She's a longtime innovator in networking and AI, and who's also the founder of DevAI. It's a new company bringing fresh ideas to how enterprise build and run AI-driven infrastructure. Um, so I just finished the talking with Susie. I tell you, her smile and her personality is contagious. She is wonderful. The work that DevAI is doing as well is extremely important for the large enterprise marketplace. So listen up. I think you'll learn something, and you'll get to see them at the AI Networking Summit in late October as well. So without any further ado, here's Susie. Susie Wee, welcome.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to see you and great to be here.
So great. I've been looking forward to this for like the last 2 days. So thanks so much for spending the time and being on the podcast.
Oh, my
So
pleasure.
I got to know you a little bit when you were kind of doing the DevNet stuff over at Cisco, which was widely successful. You did such a great job with that community and introducing kind of DevOps principles and techniques into the networking community. Really, just super job, and in that building up that community. And so as of recent, like within the year, because I think you were at the last AI summit in New York last year, and we were just talking about Dev AI. So I thought it would be good if maybe you give a little bit of a background to make sure everybody knows kind of your career journey and kind of how you got to where you are now, and then we'll talk about Dev AI. Okay.
Thing. Yeah, sounds great. And basically, I've been very blessed, to have a good career. And then, mostly blessed by the teams who have been working together to, build important kind of customer focused offerings and, building up DevNet, just the community is really what we're all about, similar to what you're doing for ONUG, Nick. It's just
Yeah.
to really have that whole kind of networking IT professional, the community as they're building the backbone for the world.
Yeah.
But yes, for my career. So I grew up in Western New York, a small town in Western New York. My parents came to the U.S. from Korea.
Huh.
After growing there, and I loved it because there's so many genuine, authentic people over there.
Yeah.
And then after growing up and having a great childhood in Batavia, New York, I made my way to MIT for college. And I
Yeah.
stayed there for 10 years. So undergrad, like bachelor's, master's, PhD, electrical
Huh.
engineering, computer science. And my PhD thesis was around HDTV. It's actually
Huh.
implementing and designing what is now HDTV. And there was like a lot of innovation there. The industry was going to shift. Nobody believed that
Yeah.
transition was even worth it.
Mm.
As we were researching it, people said, "Hey, why are you working on that? Nobody can see the difference."
Oh my God.
It was
Yeah.
early 1990s. You couldn't see the difference then, because we didn't have cameras or high res displays, aside from like IMAX theaters or something like that. But we
Yeah.
said, hey, it's going to be different, and so, it was really about a technology innovation. And
Yeah.
what was really cool about that is that um, I, it wasn't just about technology, like new TV. I was blessed with a thesis advisor, William Schreiber, who believed, he said,
Yeah.
HGTV is not about TV, it's about jobs. It's
Huh.
about changing the industry, it's changing jobs. And while there's new technology that was being created, it was really an innovation that would change people's lives, change the industry, going from analog to digital, and
Yeah.
even TV sets had to change, just everything. So that was, really kind of a passion of mine. After that, I went to HP. So I was at HP Labs
Ah.
first,
Yeah.
Hewlett Packard, great company, great culture, founded by, Bill and Dave, and,
Yeah.
just really amazing. And there, HP was like a printing and imaging company.
Yeah.
And I was a video researcher at that time. And kind of the big thing was to understand that shift, and the impact on computing and printing when you go from images to video. And HP was a great company that had telecom, servers, consumer PCs, printing. So they kind of had the whole gamut of
Yeah.
infrastructure up through apps, both telco, server infrastructure, like everything. So being in HP Labs, we were developing new video technologies, but would work with businesses like in from around the world and from all those businesses. So that gave me a great
Yep.
view of what was going on with different customers around the world and everything there. And after 10 years in HP Labs, I worked my way up from researcher to becoming a vice president and CTO in the HP Personal Systems Group. And then I got recruited over to Cisco. And I
Ah,
started at Cisco as
what year
the,
was this?
oh boy, let's see. I was at HP from 96 to 2011. So then in
Okay.
2011,
Yeah.
I moved over to Cisco,
Yeah.
and working with John Chambers, Padmashri Warrior, and really the whole crew, out
Mm.
there. And I started out as the CTO or the CTEO, the Chief Technology and Experience Officer for the
Yeah.
collaboration business. And since I did a lot in video in areas like that,
Yeah.
obviously Cisco was the leader in voice over IP and, putting media packets onto networks and IP networks and everything there. So that was a great fit. And then while I was at Cisco, then there was another shift that was going on. So while I was in the collaboration business,
Yeah.
the other shift that was happening was the transition of the industry, which you led, which was to go from networking to software defined networking.
Oh, yeah.
And at that time, that was supposedly a threat to Cisco.
Yeah.
The academics were saying, hey, software defined networking is going to take over. Companies like Cisco are going to become big, fat, dumb pipe companies.
Mm.
All the brains are going to move up into the control plane, so, everything's going to shift. And, kind of thinking about it, it was like, well, it's true. The network is going to software.
Hmm.
And while there's a lot of excitement in the industry, and Cisco is still going to be part of it, and Cisco was building its products and making software in them and building APIs into them. And they weren't ready for the world yet because we have to make, Cisco had to really make them production grade, enterprise ready. They had so much more responsibility even than a startup would at that time.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
and so, so then the thing that we said is, okay, there's this shift from networking to software defined networking. It's going to be amazing.
Mm.
But almost every networker in the world has become a networker and chose not to go into software because you could have
Right.
done that.
Yeah. For
And
sure. Yeah.
so then it came about, if you really want this kind of shift to software defined networking to happen, you need the networkers of the world to learn about software
Yeah.
because they're running basically every mission critical network in the world, someone who's Cisco certified and various things like that. And so that's how
Yeah.
we founded DevNet,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
so that kind of happened there. After 10 years of
Mm.
DevNet and really growing that, into a community, and I was so fortunate to meet the amazing IT community and
Mm.
help them out, help them learn new skills. They're just people who I love because
Mm.
every kind of IT professional, network engineer, IT engineer, exec, even, CIOs all the way up, they're very customer focused.
Yeah.
Like they want to keep that system up. The system goes down, they're on it. They're up all night fixing everything. So I find they're very like customer focused, customer obsessed. They do heroics, when nobody recognizes them.
Yeah.
They're very technical because running a network, looking at security, making it scale, doing mission critical business is very technical at heart, and the
Yeah.
technologies keep changing and growing. And they work really hard, and just
Yeah.
they're very hardworking and learning new skills. So I just
Yeah.
really love the community, and I was blessed to be able to work with them through DevNet. And then I was at Google. So I was there for a short while after Cisco. And that was really to learn about how a native software and a native cloud company works,
Uh-huh.
and just what that was like. Because I'd been in Silicon Valley, but just hadn't been in an actual, like, kind of, Google type company.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then really I was trying to think about how can I have the most impact in this next stage of my career. And my professor said, you get to do one big thing every 10 years of your
Uh,
career.
uh-huh.
You know?
That's
and
good. Yeah.
um, and then I thought, well, I've been doing innovation my whole life, but the thing that I hadn't done was actually do it while I've been in the middle of Silicon Valley. I hadn't done it through kind of the VC ecosystem, through a startup. I've done entrepreneurship at, so
Yeah.
many big companies. And then that's when Edwin Zhang and I decided to found DevAI,
Yeah.
and then really enter our entrepreneurial journey about how can we help the industry and the world adopt AI in a way that really, again, huge technology shift that can
Yeah.
change people's lives, that'll change people's jobs, that'll change everything. How can we have the most impact in that? So we're giving entrepreneurship a go with DevAI.
That's awesome. So many times I wanted to interrupt you and take you in a different direction, But one thing I have to say, one great journey. Thank you for sharing that. Um, but like your perspective on kind of the consumer side of the industry, the IT executive side of the industry, it's interesting. It's like I've been doing kind of owning for this is our 14th year. Before that, I would spend literally most of my time talking with the vendor community, as an industry analyst. And if I was ever able to talk to like an IT exec, it would be like, it's like talking to the voice of God. It's like, oh, they know all the secrets, because like they're dealing with, all of the difficulties of not just a product, but like how you connect these products together and how you're actually stitching them together in order to create business value. And I think that there's a lot um, that is not really well known, I think, in the industry, and or appreciated of how kind of IT, groups and executives, the amount of value that they create, for their companies. It's understood within their companies for sure, but I think we don't have like a really good mechanism within our industry to kind of put a spotlight on that. Maybe that's a
I'll
little
be,
bit
and
of.
I'll be honest, I don't even know if they're recognized within their companies to the extent
Sometimes
of
they're
what they're
not.
doing.
Yeah.
So they are absolutely like, that IT infrastructure
Mm.
is the heart of your business,
Yeah.
right? So whether or not a business can do cloud, whether or not a business can protect itself from cybersecurity threats, whether they can do mobile, whether they can do AI, it all depends on those IT execs and the ones who really understand the business, because
Yeah.
everybody's network and infrastructure is unique. They really are the heroes, and they do it without credit, without accolades, and
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah, and executive management. And one, it's a really good point, that you raised, because there is a lot of taking groups for granted. So, like in financial services, really money is just a change in voltage, right? It's just like it's just a one or a zero, like stored in some database, somewhere. But that's all IT, right? It's all IT. It's all infrastructure, compute storage,
Absolutely.
and networking. But like every year, it's like those groups are like, reduction in force. Okay, we're reducing the amount of budgets and so forth. And you're right. I don't think a lot of time they get the appreciation that they deserve. But I'll tell you though, like when we gather like everyone together, you can't. The amount of interaction, the dialogue that happens, across them, is just phenomenal, amazing. Because I feel
Yes.
like they don't have many places where they can express and share, what's
And that's
working.
what I love about what you're doing and about this community.
Mm.
Because what was always, like when I was fortunate to be at Cisco and be in the different executive forums like the global
Yeah,
customer advisory board, the technical advisory boards, like working with the execs from both end customers, enterprises, as well as partners.
yeah,
Um, but they're definitely like they all have their business, when they go back to their company. But their IT infrastructure is a place where they share best practices. Like
yeah,
they have to understand the new technologies, decide which ones to adopt, what not to adopt. It's not just adopting your favorite one because you have a mission critical business that you need to run.
yeah,
But the ones who come out and attend ONUG and participate in the community, they're out there because once again, they're learning, they're figuring out how to, use the newest technologies,
Yeah.
decide where to take the risks and where to adopt it. So
Yeah.
it is a truly amazing community.
Yeah. No, it's well, great. Well, thank you for that. I wasn't looking for like, I wasn't fishing,
No, no, it's just truly how I
for
feel
an
like I share
accolade.
the passion that you share for this community.
So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about kind of almost like the state of IE. I'm sorry, AI. It's so funny. John Chambers says, we were doing AI before anyone knew how to spell it. I'm like, go figure. Thanks, John. Because I just proved like a second ago that I couldn't even pronounce it. So, well, anyway, so AI and enterprise networking, from your perspective, how is it changing? And there's multiple different ways that you can think of it. You can think of it from an operations point of view. You can also think of it from the overall infrastructure point of view, how the networks have to change to accommodate workloads. And so you should, you were so close to this, with DevNet, so it's like, that was the first kind of like phase of automation where we're going into like kind of automation on steroids now. But maybe, okay, your perspective, on AI and enterprise networking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess, I like to start with the customer, right? And what they're thinking of. So, they have their business, right? And, it was hard to compete before, right? Like every year, decade, it just gets harder and harder to compete in business because
Yeah.
technology moves fast, new business models come to, it is just a very tough job. And then also the rate of advancement in the underlying technology, which is enabling the business, that changes a lot. And the way a company can kind of adopt and do all of that is really important. And then the enterprise has a responsibility for a real business, like for real customers, whether you're a bank, whether you're a retailer, whatever you have, I'm in a startup now. I can do what I want. If you are a big enterprise, you have real customers and you've been established for a long time. You need to take care of them while looking
Yeah.
at the new technologies and everything there. And so, that's where if you really put your mindset into share the mindset of the IT exec, then they need to see which of these technologies should I adopt and how can I keep the business going and not put the business at risk as well.
Yeah.
So when I look at enterprises, again, it's hard to compete. So they need to move fast. They need to do something or they need to move. They can't be too risk adverse because they still need to serve their customers. But there's this game changing technology out there with AI, and it is creating entirely new ways that people interact, the new ways that people can do things. There are even venture funded competitors, right? So it's like a
Mm.
different ball game. You're not just competing against other enterprises. So what I see in these IT execs is that in the enterprises is that they do need to make the change because they need to implement an AI infrastructure and have an AI strategy.
Yeah.
And as they're doing it, it gives them, a possibility to have, real advances in how they do their work because their work is so hard. They
Yeah.
use so many IT tools. They have, products from different vendors, and across this is, protecting from cyber security threats and everything there. Now, in terms of AI, then we have to look at, how are they going to adopt it, right, and put it
Yeah.
into their plan. And we're talking about enterprises, right?
Yep.
And so then what I see that's going on now is that all of these enterprises are absolutely thinking about how to transform not only their own teams but also the whole company to enable them to use AI.
Yeah.
The companies themselves are figuring out what's our legal take on this, what's our contractual take, how are we, they have separate legal teams or separate AI strategy efforts to be able to get this going, and they're still defining it. They're very much defining it, wanting to take advantage of the technology shift and opportunity there,
Yeah.
but then still under work of like it's very formative of how are they going to make it real and how is it going to land,
Yeah.
and it can be machine learning in terms of looking ahead and really identifying trends or proactively finding errors that could occur, fighting against cybersecurity threats and everything there, all the way to operations. We know that developers can use new tools like Cursor and others to get done quickly, but how
Yeah.
can the rest of the workforce improve their productivity and get those huge advancements from before? So all of these shifts are happening right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective. I think where, I don't know, I'm kind of summarizing like, um, kind of the conversations we've been having over the last, like, basically during the summer. And it seems like, to add to what you had just said, um, from the business point of view, there's a lot of review of kind of workflows, and kind of looking at which workflows can AI best enhance. A lot of code development, we all kind of know about that. Kind of individual productivity. Everybody kind of knows about that. But there's also areas where, and Svi was really good. Svi Gal, we had a great chat with him. He's the CTO of Memorial Sloan Kettering, and so
Yes.
Svi was talking about there are areas within their flow. So, like, when you first come to, make an appointment, or you're kind of looking for a doctor, or, so getting connected to a doc, inside meeting with the doc, and then paying for that meeting with the doc. It's like all the healthcare and all of the billing, that goes on. And so what they discovered is that it's the areas that are most complex, that are also creating the greatest amount of frustration, is really where that AI has been really good. So if you think about those three areas that I mentioned for them, it's like, you're kind of like in a voicemail voice tree, trying to interact, to try to like find a doctor, pushing this button, listening to this message, then trying to schedule a meeting. You talk to someone, maybe you lose the call, you have to call back. So it's like they went to like all kind of AI agents, for that. And so, like, they basically
Absolutely.
saw like, all of a sudden, like, their customer satisfaction, is way up. The amount of time that they're spending interacting with the agent is like way up. And so it's like, so great win, there. And then in the middle part of it, it's when you're with your doctor, it's like, maybe you're getting a diagnosis, and maybe that diagnosis is like putting you into shock. It's like, this is a cancer center, so it's like, so that's got to be recorded, and so they usually have somebody kind of recording there. You might have seen them. You kind of walk in, and there's the person with like a little table that's on wheels that has a computer, and then they're typing away as the doctor's talking. That's all gone. So that's now being recorded. And there's an AI agent that's basically listening and transcribing that, and then providing kind of a summary of the notes that you get, as a patient. Because like when you're getting news, sometimes it's like it's going in one ear out the other. You're just like, you're not processing, anymore. You're just like, okay, what do I have? And then so you'll get that, and then you can now interact with that portal, because you might have forgot questions, that you had. So you add those, and then the doctor gets a summary, not just of the meeting notes, but also over the last 18 to 24 months of the people that he's diagnosed with the same ailment. What was the treatment? What was the prognosis? So the doc gets a lot of good information, and then on the back end of it is like they've seen the amount of frustration in dealing with health insurance agents and paying bills, and the discrepancies around bills kind of
Absolutely.
plummet. So
Absolutely.
anyway, so really sorry for that really long,
No, 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 no. And I'm actually I'll build on that,
you know,
because if you take a look at some of the things that are happening, right, is that, you have customers who are in need, you have a business that's there,
hmm,
you have experts. And I want to
yeah,
focus on the domain experts,
yeah,
because the doctors are the domain experts. You still need that. But
yeah,
now they're getting assisted, right? Because now with AI, they're able to get access to data and insights from that data that they couldn't get before.
hmm,
So then the experts can actually, get the right information and then continue, while AI could do it, there's still how you're empowering them. And I still view that as a lot of parallels to IT,
hmm.
because in IT, what we have is we have experts. Again, those
Oh, for
guys
sure.
who are really the IT engineers, the executives, they have an expertise, right? They're
Yeah,
not just they're just there. They have a very important expertise. They know the business, they know the technology. Their workflows are still very manual.
hmm, yeah,
And as much as we've wanted to do with automation and everything there's still a lot of fragmented tools. the data that's in these different tools is kind of disparate and maybe inconsistent or inaccurate, then they need to make the calls of what to do and kind of go across these tools. And if you take a look at how can you really make these heroes, these are the heroes, but how can you make their jobs better when they still have these manual workflows and things? And
Mm.
that's actually what we're trying to do with DevAI, is just to really respect the job that they need to do, use the power of AI to kind of give them the information, give them the tools that they need, with the power of AI so that they can really do that. But it is still fragmented workflows amongst teams to support the business.
Susie, that was such a great transition. I'm so glad you did that, because I wanted to start talking about Dev AI, and that was like perfect. So thanks. So I think domain expertise is really, really super important, in this conversation. And I think there's a couple of like kind of two quotes from two IT execs that are kind of like have high profiles in the community. One is Gene Sun. He's the CISO over at FedEx. His great contribution, was like, "Hi, AI is not going to take your job, but people with AI skills will." And I think really the tweak to that is what you just said. It's people with domain expertise and AI,
Yes.
are really going to be the folks who thrive, in this new environment. And then it's the same thing too. Like James Beeson in Dallas, so he's the CISO now over at Pfizer. The mantra at Pfizer is like it's hey, change the people or change the people. Meaning that okay, change the people to get IT skills or AI skills, or you're gonna have to swap and change out the people. So again, I think it goes back to the domain. You can't just have AI skills and think that you're going to be fine. You need the context. You need the domain expertise. So talk. Let's talk about Dev AI. So like, what are you doing with it, and how are companies? How are you assisting companies?
Absolutely. And just again, I resonate with you because to me, there's a lot of things that AI can do, and people talk about whether or not that's going to take jobs, but people still have an intelligence that the AI doesn't have. And when you're talking about an enterprise, there
Yeah,
is like the information you can get from the world from these large models, and then there's within the company
yeah,
and all of the information that happens within a company to run that business, the workflows, the people, the processes, the infrastructure, like everything is a whole nother beast, right? And so quite honestly, they're not fully served by the amazing AI models and tools that are out there. So in many ways, kind of the IT teams are still kind of stuck, right? There's not a lot of attention spent on IT, like AI for IT,
yeah,
and once again, uh, there's a lot of opportunity there, though. And so if we take a look at the problems that they have, and is once again, it is these fragmented tools. Like so, they get out there. They're responsible for compliance, security, business infrastructure, giving AI, empowering the whole workforce of the company to serve the business applications to the customer. But once again, there's so many tools that they use. Every tool is actually amazing. It has its own core of what it solves.
yeah,
It's solving an IT problem very well. All of those tools are still advancing. They're going to have AI capability. Like just about every company is adding, incredible AI companies to their tools.
yeah,
Um, but the end user, the IT engineer, is still trying to work across these tools, right?
yeah,
So they have multiple tools that they're using. And again, everyone is great, but that still creates a lot of kind of difficulty when they're trying to get their job done. And that's where DevAI helps. Is that what we've chosen to focus on is to look at how can we help the IT professional do their job, the domain expert, the one who really has the expertise,
yeah.
but help them when they need to go across these tools. So I spoke to one great IT exec at a very large coffee company,
Uh-huh.
and he said, "Susie, I know that you want to help me with AI, but we don't. It's hard for us even to begin thinking about AI because first we need to get our data in order." Like
For
we need to
sure.
get our data straight. So we don't even have the right data that we can put into an AI. And and if you take a look at the pain points of our IT execs, it really, and the IT teams, it is that the data is in all different kinds of formats.
Yeah.
The source of truth of your data, within a company is actually very different. Like, it's not just one tool that knows it all. One tool is used greatly by the network infrastructure team. Another tool is used by the procurement team. Another tool is used by the security
Security
teams.
team. Yep. Yeah.
And you kind of go across, and all of this has to work. And
Yeah.
again, they're owned by people. There's the processes for the tool. The data's all over the place. So the place that DevAI is that we're building an IT engine that works across these tools, and we're forming great partnerships with the various tool
Yeah.
companies. And then we're really helping the user as they have to go across them to really clean up the data, to just kind of true it up, improve the data accuracy and the data consistency in those various tools, put it at their fingertips so that people can actually get the data that they need from it, give them additional insights on top, have an AI agent, a tech buddy that they can interact with as they're working their infrastructure.
Yeah, that is like so awesome. So it's kind of data stewardship, being able to kind of access data from all these various different tools. So do you is there a canonicalizing, of that, a normalization, of this data into a consistent format, and then do you keep it local? Do you keep the data distributed? Or do you kind of use telemetry and kind of like, create a kind of a data lake, an infrastructure log data lake? So I guess how are you
Yes.
approaching it?
So we are, one of our design principles is to not create another data lake.
So
So
good.
the
I'm
last
so
thing that
glad you said that. I am so glad you said
I think that
that.
the last
Perfect.
thing that the IT
Yeah.
teams need is
Yeah.
yet another tool. Like, granted, we're an AI agent, right? So we are, another tool. We're giving everybody an AI agent that they can use, but we want to help people get full value out of their IT tools.
Yeah.
So the ones that they've already invested in. But the pain point that people have, even speaking to each of, because we're partnering, with these companies as well.
Hmm.
The pain point that people have is not when they're in a tool. Like, when they're in the tool, it's great, and it's doing its thing. Maybe there's some things that can be improved, but it has something that it was built for, right? And it's
Yeah.
constantly improving on that. But the pain point is when they have to work across. And almost
Mm.
any task needs multiple tools. So we found out, on average, IT engineers, to solve a problem, they need to go across 5 to 7 tools.
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
to get just some tasks done. And even when they go through it and get the data from them, the data, even what's called the source of truth, the data is still inaccurate. And even with those inaccuracies for some fields, that also makes it, again, very manual, very error prone of how they can go and figure out which is the most accurate data that they need. And really what we're doing is going through to help bring up the data quality overall, right?
Mm.
And as you said, like, look at the different data that's in different tools, understand the workflows of the company to see, every implementation is different. Is, where are your IP addresses really correct?
Uh-huh.
Where
Mm.
is your kind of, network equipment? Like, what fields of it, obviously the software licensing information for it might not be as accurate in the network infrastructure tool, but more in the procurement tool. And yet, the connections, the interfaces, the IP addresses, the settings, all of that is obviously going to be much more correct in your network tools.
Yeah.
So really understanding this, and our goal once again is to just help people to improve their use of these tools and improve the quality of them, but really make it easier for the human, the person who has to work across them, to get the most value from them.
Yeah, that's really so. What a great model, So people are invested in those tools; they know how to use them, and so they want to kind of continue to leverage that expertise. And so now, what you do is, and that's make it easier for them to kind of share data and expand, their visibility across multiple different domains. To you can I'm not sure like what if these are mostly operational roles, so you're kind of looking at incident incident management, and so like getting much quicker time to resolution, or quicker time to root cause analysis, or root cause period, you know. So maybe a couple of kind of use cases on how you're
Yeah.
seeing some
Um,
customers using them.
Yeah, so actually it's all across. So absolutely for incident response, right? So understanding the incidents, understanding what's happened last,
Hmm.
bringing people the information they need once they see one. How can they go across and work on those? And
Yeah.
then it's once again the human workflows across. So even if you're working on solving a ticket, so we're significantly reducing the time, like by 60%, 60 to 80% on the time they need to solve a ticket. Because
Yeah.
once they see a ticket start to need to solve it, they need to go gather information from everywhere, and what we're doing is really learning and giving them, the insights that they need more directly. The other part of the human workflow is that, you might have one shift that's working on it, and then all
Yeah.
these businesses are around the clock. They need to pass it on.
Yeah.
So, how do you carry, kind of that information to the next person, so that they can really continue on? Um, some of the other things are even along the lines of compliance and auditing, right?
Yeah.
So
Huge
when you
area.
another area that is really hurt by fragmented tools and inconsistent data, right? So you ask someone to go out and do an audit, and I know like anybody who's a listener of your podcast
Hmm.
here is going to be like, oh, when we have to do that audit,
I know.
what do you
It's
need
like,
to do? You need to run around, collect all of the information from all of the tools. I had someone who told me that, yeah, she had a global infrastructure, data centers around the world. She got asked to do that audit. She had to literally send people to run up and down the data centers to check everything again, right? So there's so much you can do kind of digitally,
yeah.
but you still need a person to run around and check these things. So it's again a place that is really important and mission critical, takes a lot of time, but the problem is fragmented tools, inconsistent data, right? And that makes the human workflow very tough.
Yeah.
In addition, security. So looking at, again, a big cause of security is the misconfiguration of data and inaccurate data. Like, how do you
Hmm.
know what's where? Which of my devices are in use, not in use? What's connected to what? Again, this is an area where you're looking across tools. You have security tools, you have, kind of infrastructure tools, you have compute virtualization applications, kind of full stack monitoring. Another place where, once again, a lot of data comes in and people need to traverse all of these tools. So, just by really improving your infrastructure and your data accuracy and your workflows, you can really help people a lot in being
Yeah.
able to deliver.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, like the whole doing audits, or like you get that memo and it's like a heart attack. It's like, oh my god, it's like I got to do that. It's like it is the worst rock fetch. So the more that can be made streamlined, and so that the regulators are comfortable, with that you are in compliance, the better. So that's a really great use case, because everyone hates audits. You know,
Yes.
um, and maybe probably the auditors don't even like it, but it's like it's not, it's like it's not a fun thing to look forward to.
Well, quite honestly, so I'm also on the board of Analog Devices, so public tech
Oh, okay.
company.
Yeah.
And when we look from that perspective, we need to make sure that the business, the infrastructure is safe. And
Yeah.
the worst thing, there's a reason you need to do it, right? Is you need to make sure the infrastructure is safe, that you're secure from these different areas, and it requires it, but it's a pain point for everybody, but so important.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, is the kind of is the Dev AI solution set? How broad is your view of infrastructure? Is it kind of network security, kind of cloud? Do you also like look towards developer environments? So, is there kind of a intersection between kind of where the application touches the infrastructure, as
Yeah.
well? So,
Sure thing. So what's been very interesting. Sorry, another part of what's been interesting to me. So I'm still learning, right? So learning new ways of doing things and jumping up into the startup world has been
hmm,
fascinating.
hmm,
Just to see, like I know, or I've learned a lot about how to innovate in a big company, right? So whether, you're creating something like DevNet or new innovations for Cisco collaboration or for Hewlett Packard's telecom business, anyway, for all of these different areas, um,
Yeah.
just, the thing that I had not done officially was to really innovate in a startup. And so the thing that is really important, because I've learned a lot in the last year and a half, is that you need to start with a focus, right? You need to start with a focus area where you're solving a problem,
Mm.
that a real problem that someone has, because you don't have the resources to do everything and build everything. And you start with a lot of customer discovery. So I'm very
Yeah.
thankful that we actually have some close customers who are actually in the ONUG community, who spent lots of time with us to really explain their problems and,
Awesome.
really help us find opportunities that we could really help with. And, in doing that, where we did choose our first focus was, at the root of what's ONUG, which is helping first the network IT teams as they're providing connectivity across their networks. But the use cases also include security audits up to the application layer. And as we're starting out with some of the network connectivity tools, then it then jumps up because people want to see full stack. And then they
Yeah.
want us to grow into their knock and sock.
Right.
And, they're really wanting us to hit more use cases. So there's a number of tools that we're integrating with. And so if people are, for instance, using ServiceNow, Nautobot, Dynatrace, Infoblocks, Cisco
Mm.
Catalyst and SD-WAN and tools like this,
Mhm.
then we're helping to work across these tools for those use cases. And you can see they very much go into the application space, because
Yeah.
people, but into the virtualization space, the cloud space, because those are the problems that they have.
Yeah.
So they said it's not just the network that I need solved, but I need to know where my business applications are and then come into the network connectivity and everything there as well.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that you're kind of really looking at this as more of a fabric than an infrastructure, and you're kind of it's both kind of the applications, infrastructure, and it would be. I think the whole knock sock. We actually have a couple of really good sessions, and if you're not on the agenda, Susie, I should kind of we'll take a look at that on Monday, to kind of like get you on some panels. But we're talking about like kind of an agentic operations center. So an AOC is kind of like the transition there. So I think you have all the right pieces here. It's like you're kind of helping companies that offer a set of tools to kind of participate in a much more automated um, view, and also expand the view of those tool sets, across multiple different domains. Moving up the stack is great. Focusing on a couple of key use cases, I think at first to like enter into the marketplace, and then and then into kind of knock and sock. So let's talk a little bit about maybe how this industry starts to look like in 5 years. It's 5 years isn't that far off, but my God, so much has changed like just in the last 2 years. Um, you know, um, there's a couple of graphics that I've been kind of working on for like my opening remarks, and one is um, the kind of maturity or the model of autonomy, like when kind of AI models start to become really um, autonomous, right? So like can you have agents that when will agents kind of become so expert as to kind of like maybe they replace that doctor that we were talking about before, or not replace, but they can really augment and kind of do very close similar kind of work. And it really comes out to how far or how many iterations of a feature can the AI models process. And like right now, some of the models might be able to look at a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of days, a month. Like in 5 years, they're basically saying it's like the models will be able to kind of do enough simulations for like almost 19,000 years, like well beyond like our comprehension.
It's
So
amazing.
that has different implications for has lots of different implications, but whether for businesses, the global economy, what have you, but also for like our industry in particular. Then you can also manage if that is true. Like, in 5 years, these tools can simulate a massive number of futures, so then they can now project where is congestion occurring, where are we seeing packet loss or about to see packet loss, which particular signatures that are flowing throughout this network are really suspicious. You can all of a sudden like see, okay, there's a real potential for a lot of automation here,
Absolutely.
on the fabric itself. So maybe so. Sorry for that long-winded kind
No,
of
no, no, no. That's
lead
great.
in, but so what's your view? If you thought about it, which I'm sure you probably have, it's like, how does our industry look like in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think so when I take a look, think about the next 5 years, like as you're doing here, um, like first, again, the capabilities of AI are tremendous. And it's not that AI hasn't existed; it's just that like there's been so much bold investment in AI.
Yeah,
Right. So, when I was doing my PhD, there are groups that are doing AI and doing voice understanding, image generation, like all of these kinds of things. But those teams never had this much compute to put
for
on a
sure.
problem.
Yeah,
And it was just like, boom, hey, let's just collect all the data of the world and put it all into an AI. And let's give it so much compute that it can start to answer questions. So, while there are new technologies that have come to play, it's also just like how much kind of, compute, the boldness of the investments that they've taken forward, which is creating this whole new opportunity. So with that, uh, you're right. Like there's a whole new area of opportunity. It can learn. It can see everything. It's kind of like when, Google went about to, organize the world's data and bring it together and allow you to search it. Right. You get so many
yeah,
insights. But now, in addition to searching it, you can compute on it and get smart about it and learn from it. So that puts us in a whole different place. And I view that what that does is that changes what people need to do, right? And what kind of access people can informate. I do still feel like people are needed, but what they're needed for changes. So even if you look at coding today, right? My guys are still coding. I still need my software developers, but how they're doing it is changing because of the opportunities that they have,
yeah,
with AI and, what it tells you. And then the way that you work changes because you get so much information. So the infrastructure is advancing, like the whole new AI GPU based infrastructures is a whole new compute architecture, new storage architecture, new networking and communications architecture.
yeah,
And by the way, that's just going to keep changing and advancing. So it is just a fundamentally kind of new, again, infrastructure architecture for our IT architecture for everybody. And then kind of the smarts on then how do you work it? So, and you're going to need to keep building it because it gets more and more capable, and the kinds of things that you can do to your business change when, like right now, everybody's adding chatbots, but it's way more than that.
yeah,
We were just about to do our lunch order today in the office, and we went to our restaurant. Zorene's is one of our favorites.
yeah.
And they're like, they had a little AI agent. How can I help you? I was like, wow, on
Hmm.
my restaurant website, you
Oh,
know.
cool.
So that's the kind of transformation, times millions, that are going on. But once again, the tools are moving so fast that you still need kind of the people to understand and know how to use them. And it's just that the problems they do are different. So now that there's a lot more automation that can come to bear, while I hope with DevNet automation problem would be solved, but we know that
Yeah,
it's not solved yet.
it's not solved.
um,
Yeah,
it's not, but AI
yeah,
actually brings the opportunity for automation to come to bear,
yeah,
because now it can actually help the expert generate the code they need, because while they are the network IT infrastructure expert, maybe coding really fast was not their skill set. But with this, they can get the code that they need and still supervise it in the right ways. Now they can be thinking more critically
mm,
about the critical problem at hand and not have to spend all their time getting data and collecting all of those. So if you kind of fast forward 5 years, it will be just even more capable. Like what I'm finding is that what my guys have to do now more is think.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't have to think less. You have to think more and think critically to get the most out of it. And then we can solve new problems that we could never solve before.
Yeah. I think it's almost like we had this future pegged at the very beginning of this discussion. It's domain expertise
Yes.
that's augmented by AI. Because even with your software engineers, they have to have the domain expertise to understand what the outcome is that they want. Right? If they just had the AI skills, they wouldn't get the outcomes. They need the domain expertise, and I think the same thing that's going to happen, like in as we transition NOC and SOCs into AOCs, and that is you still need domain expertise, but maybe those folks are more doing policy. They're doing exception. There's something that's just totally broken and it's gone off the rails, and so people got to kind of dive into it.
Yeah.
It's the whole governance of this and setting policies. So I think clearly there's a shift that's going on, but I think the way that you've really articulated it in the very early part of it, I think that you're kind of setting up DevAI, as to have a place at that table, over the next 5 years, with that thinking that you do need to, like, it's not just going to be AI kind of running everything and agents kind of talking to each other and figuring everything out. It's really going to be people kind of guiding that and
Yeah, and
overseeing it.
there'll be things that the AIs can solve themselves and do. And and if I talk to any IT professional, whether they're an engineer, manager, director, an exec, why are they in it? They're actually not in it. I mean, to do the CLI, they're actually not in it to do kind of the manual stuff
Yeah.
across tools, right? They're there because they believe in technology. They want to enable their business with technology in completely new ways. They want to keep the system alive and going to help grow the business. They want to be the technology enablers. That's kind of why they're in it. It's and then everything else is the tool, right?
Hmm.
And again, it's the most it's a very thoughtful community, although they've had to do very manual tasks,
Yeah.
right? But they're there learning about new technologies. Everybody's, what can they apply in different areas? It's a very innovative community. It's just that now they get helped in such bigger ways so they can work on the next level problem.
Yeah.
And actually they can adapt because that's what they've been doing this whole time.
No, that's for sure. Well, Susie, this has been so great. Thanks so much for the time. Thanks for sharing, your thought leadership with everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing you. I just found out, like, at the beginning of the podcast, that DevAI is going to be at the summit with us. So super excited about that. So
We
great
are.
to
We're
see you.
excited to finally be at the level where we can actually be a new idea, even sponsor of ONUG. So we're excited to jump in there more actively.
Well, we're honored, and we're excited to have you, and try to do everything. Make sure that you have a great experience in New York. So I just want to say thank you again, Susie. This was really just super great, and thank you everyone for plugging in.
Thank you so much.